In this my 12th pearl of wisdom, during this COVID pandemic environment where we have been brought to our knees as a people and forced to do a retake on our lives while seeking answers to the real purpose of life, I will fulfill my promise to share how the commencement of a strange coincidence presented itself in 1969-70, some 20 or so years after Eric Gairy made his rather colorful entry into Grenadian politics, maiming the authority of the planter class and the British aristocracy and ruling class, ceding power and responsibility to a younger generation of Grenadians on his initiative, which began at the tender age of 27 in 1949 and climaxed with him gaining a seat on the legislature 2 years later at the hands of the power of the people. The question was asked in comparison with 69 years ago, 1951 that is, when a young man in his late 20s was vying for political power, having come from very humble beginnings to rise up to be counted favorably by the masses. What is the average young man in his 20s doing today? Of course, we can see them all over with a stereotypical look of skylarking, involving themselves in foolishness, always on their cell phone, juking it up, posting nonsense on social media, and thus removing all doubt that they subscribe to lumpenism, while an uncomfortably large number of them can be seen wearing their pants below their butts while they roll up their scratch, as I said last week, walking all over with an image that can't take them anywhere far, while irrelevant minds who are totally out of timing are left to plot the course for their future in all 5 bastions of society, to include Parliament and Cabinet, the judiciary, the police, the churches, and I must omit to mention the media here, as that bastion has proved how unable they are, even if that bastion is laden with youthful talent. Sad. I am very grateful for the commendations offered by so many of you who lament never having heard that spin on our local history before. Well, today you're about to learn of the strange coincidence I spoke of. In late 69 to early 70, a young barrister returned from Britain, having completed his law degree from the University of London. Before that, in 1967 to 69, Maurice Bishop worked on his thesis, Constitutional Development of Grenada, but he left simply because of a disagreement with his supervisor in assessing the disturbances of 1951. Upon his return to Grenada at the tender age of 25-26, Bishop in December of 1974 gave legal defense to striking nurses at the General Hospital who had hoped to improve living conditions of patients by adequate medication and medical supplies, better wages for themselves, and even more improved facilities to work in and for the patients to convalesce. Interestingly, 50 years later, and similarities with conditions at our current General Hospital abound. He was arrested along with 30 others while protesting alongside them. After a 7-month trial, they were all acquitted. It is important to note that both Eric Gairy and Rupert Bishop, the father of Maurice Bishop, forged a very close relationship from their Aruba days. And notwithstanding this truth, Maurice Bishop never eased up on his opposition to Gairy. You see, to Bishop and his cohorts, the Gairy of the 1950s was not the Gairy of the 70s, and he was viewed as having lost his revolutionary genesis and became the replacement for the excesses of our colonial past. By this time, Maurice Bishop had already formed his movement for the Assemblies of the People, MAP, and they were very interested in the Julius Nyeri philosophy with a strong sense of nationalism. Of course, later they were to merge with JEWEL, Joint Effort for Welfare, Education and Liberation, headed at the time by Teddy Victor, Sebastian Thomas and Unison Whiteman. This merger produced the New Jewel Movement, NJM. Follow me carefully as I show you the age at which Bishop started to give Eric Gairy real West, and at what age Gairy's leadership was determined to have been expired by the New Jewel Movement. Maurice started at 25-26, while Gairy started at 27-29. When Gairy was 49-50 years in 1969-70, Bishop and his cohorts determined that it was time for a change. Between 1970 and 1979, there was much tension in and around Grenada until it climaxed on March 13th, 1979, with Bishop being 35 while Gary was 58-59. In essence, the 29-year-old Bishop in 1974-75 intensified all efforts to destabilize Gary, winning the support of the masses, who by this time had fallen for all the propaganda against Sir Eric, making it easy for his administration to crumble. In conclusion, I can only confirm my belief over the years that my generation, up to 60-65 years old, have failed this country and by extension the nation. Imagine 69 years ago, a 29-year-old local from humble beginnings rose up and wrestled power from the British planter class in Grenada. And 49 years ago, a young 25-26-year-old landed and started to give that same Gary, who by then was 49-50, bare west, shaking him off his foundation of mass support, finally overthrowing him 8 to 9 years later when he was 58-59. By this time, Maurice was 34-35. All this tells me is that many Grenadians my age and in general between 50 and 65 have absolutely no right to be leading anything in this country, as we have not contributed meaningfully to any proper legacy for this country as a 46-year-old independent state. Yet for all, we want to sit on boards and committees to set the course for Grenada's future in a post-COVID-19 context. We need to allow history to guide us and make way for the younger ones who may very well be more relevant than we are. Young people, you need to rise up within yourselves by positioning yourselves for meaningful leadership in the land of your birth to your unlimited possibilities.